You're tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here's your host, John J. Tassoni Jr., with today's guest.
Thank you for joining us on another edition of Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Narcan, please get it. Leave it in your purse, put it in your car. This saves lives. We're losing too many folks. This saves lives. Thank you. So my guest today is Mr. Kyle Bennett, and he's from the United Way, and he's the Chief of Staff for the President of the United Way. Welcome, Kyle, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, John. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
You're certainly welcome. I want my viewers to know, because there's a lot of stuff that United Way does in the substance use mental health field that nobody knows about, Kyle.
Yeah.
So the ball is yours.
Love it. Well, the first thing I'll say, as you know, we have a helpline, 211. For folks that don't know, you can call United Way anywhere around the country by dialing 3 little numbers, 211. We're open 24 hours a day. We speak over 200 languages and dialects in real time and can really help you to get to the heart of a problem by connecting you with the resources and get the services that you need, whether you're struggling with a drug addiction or having a mental health experience. So we're here around the clock. The second thing we do, we operate a program for the state called POINT. That's the primary point of contact for seniors and adults with disabilities. You can call 211 or you can call the main line to get to POINT. Either way, we'll connect you with our team members there. They're the front line of service in terms of accessing Medicare, Medicaid, and all of the programs and services that help, such as the Caregivers Alliance, but really they help to provide that internal support structure for people who are seniors and adults with disabilities. And then beyond that, we have a walk-in center. We see almost 2,000 people a year coming right through the front door with any number of concerns. They could be looking to enroll during benefits open enrollment period, or they could themselves be having a period where they're going without food or shelter and looking for that direct assistance. So our team is there year round, whether by phone or in person, and they're here to answer the call. And I'll just say the last piece, which is probably less known. We have a mobile outreach van that goes to over 500 sites a year. So we're in all 39 cities and towns, including Block Island. Last year, the van was out on Block Island and brought some programs and services to the residents there that are year-rounders in a way that they hadn't seen before. So it was exciting to see that happen.
You know, to get to your point about the van, it's almost like a mobile emergency room. Whatever issue you may have, you can take it to the van. And I'm not being facetious by saying that, because there's so much information in that van that is given out to the public, the general public, that a lot of people don't know about the van.
Absolutely.
You know, I get that all the time when I'm out doing, talks or anything like that about the van.
The van connects across the state, as I mentioned, over 500 times in each community. It brings services to Bally's Twin River. Right. Folks who are suffering from gambling addiction. We work with the veterans in Operation Stand Down to make sure that our veterans have access to the services that they need. And then just to places like the local library. You know, we're in the Woonsocket Library community, the Cranston and Warwick library systems, to make sure that people who are going to access services can access not just our team, but the partners from organizations like Blue Cross and Blue Shield, or the State Department of Health and Human Services. They come out and join us on the van and make sure that our community has access in real time to services they need.
Yeah, it's quite an operation. I've seen it, been on the van at the recovery rallies that we have. The van was there, and it just amazes me the amount of information that one van can carry.
That van is amazing in so many ways. It has the same access to the data system that our call specialists have back in the office, but it also has in 2 staff members key social service agents. You know, they've worked in the field for a long time, and they're connected in ways that make sure that the people who come through the front door, they get exactly what they need.
You know, so many people don't even realize the amount of work that United Way does. Whether it's food, whether it's substance use, whether it's mental health, whether it's all sorts of things, dental, anything you can put in a basket, United Way is there for it.
Yeah, we try not to be all things to all people, but over the years, as you've said, we've had to do a lot of different things to stretch ourselves to meet the need of the community. We work with about 500 companies a year to raise revenue that helps to invest in products and services, but also to support our team members. We work with the city and towns around the state, all 39, and we sit on certain boards and commissions to make sure that we can work from a policy angle to implement the programs and services and investments that are needed to bring about change.
Yeah, and you know, in today's world, there's more people need access to a whole bunch of things now.
I'll give you a sneak peek.
Homelessness, the whole bit, but go ahead.
Our 211 handbook every year, we track the number of contacts that we have, and it'll be released on February 11th at the State House on National 211 Day. But this year we've seen 213,000 individual needs represented. So up almost 30,000 over last year.
And you do the number, you know, we have around a million individuals.
Yes.
That's a third of the number.
Yes. So we're up there, I mean, well over a fifth of the number, getting to a quarter of the state's population. But more importantly, thinking about how many people have a repeated need. If somebody needs food on the first of the month in January, they may come back again in February. They may come back again in October if things don't pan out. So we're starting to track repeat callers, repeat customers, and visitors to make sure that they're able to get the services that they need. And when they fall short, whether they just happen to slip through that social safety net, they can still call 211 and we'll be there to help out.
And the other thing too is because we're in the Northeast, the utility costs are through the roof, whether it be electric, gas, oil, gasoline, the whole bit. I mean, people are suffering, and I say this all the time. A lot of people in Rhode Island are only one paycheck away from calling 211.
I literally had a call on the way over here talking about the Good Neighbor Energy Fund.
Yeah.
This year, the state has a reduced pool of funding for LIHEAP, the program that traditionally helps people with heating assistance. The Good Neighbor Energy Fund sits just on top of that program in terms of eligibility, so folks who are slightly above the income threshold, they can still get assistance. The call is for our advisory table, which is primarily made up of the energy providers and our community action partners, that we reduce that eligibility to a little bit closer to where LIHEAP is, so that more people have access to the fund. But it's true. It's one more thing, one more program that United Way supports in the Good Neighbor Energy Fund.
Yeah, you know, you just slipped a little bit about telling me about the homeless issue. It's in the news every day. It's not only Rhode Island, but it's across the country.
Yes.
How much of a pool is that taking away from your organization? Obviously, it must be a big pool. I mean, this show is airing February 9th and February 8th. It's cold. People are sleeping in the streets. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough beds to put these folks. So how much of a drag is it on United Way?
Well, it's not a drag. It's our call to action. You know, we think about the homelessness state in Rhode Island and how many people we're seeing now who are chronically homeless or even in an episodic fashion, and how both of those numbers are growing over time. We invest about $1 million a year in housing strategies to help produce new housing, to preserve housing, to support people in housing who might be dealing with a number of crises or issues, and then certainly to help our folks who are outdoors and living without housing. This is a tough time, John, but I will say this. One of the things that we advocate for as we think about the mental health community and the recovery communities is that we have investments in strategies that are not separate or isolated from housing. If someone's getting a treatment in a treatment facility and we release them to a community and they don't have housing, chances are that recovery effort is going right down the tubes.
It's going to fail.
So we want to make sure that as we move forward, we're rethinking, re-strategizing with our state partners to ensure that the recovery effort and the housing effort are hand in hand.
I want to talk more about that when we come back, because we're going to pay the bills.
All right.
You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages with Kyle Bennett.
And now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Mr. Kyle Bennett is in the house. He's the Chief of Staff at the United Way, And thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy.
Thanks so much for having me.
But thank you for coming on today, because I want my viewers to know that what United Way does, and you gave a great overview, but there's more to it. Strategies. I want to talk to you a little bit about strategies. Obviously, we have a homeless population, and it's growing leaps and bounds. Substance use and mental health growing leaps and bounds. How much pressure does that put on United Way? Because obviously you said in the first segment, the repeat customers, repeat people coming in. And I'm sure it's more now than ever, people coming in, whether it's food, utilities, substance use, mental health, homelessness, and the list goes on.
Yeah, United Way, our helpline 211, we receive a call, and in years past we realized that needs kind of cluster. So someone might call for food, but they also have a need for utility assistance. They might need utility assistance today, but tomorrow they need housing or rental assistance. We used to have 2 or 3 needs per call. That number's expanded to 4 to 5 needs now. So people are coming with a more complex situation each time they call or visit United Way. And to your point, yes, we're seeing more people call. We had almost 30,000 additional callers or needs expressed this year over last year. And that's a significant jump for us. It's almost 15%. And what we're seeing in that, again, in addition to the complexity, it's the geographical distribution of people around the state. It's not just Providence or South Providence. It's all 39 cities and towns. It's at various income levels. People who have been our donors in the past are now calling saying, hey, I need help for the first time and I didn't know where to call, but I knew I could call United Way or 211. And
how crazy is that, though?
It's heartbreaking.
Your donors calling for help.
Knowing that someone's been able to invest in United Way and partner with us for a decade or more, and now because of no fault of their own, they need help too.
Rental assistance. Obviously the rentals are going through the roofs. People are taking advantage of people. How does that fall within the realm of the United Way?
You mentioned earlier policy. Our team works on both program and policy. So we've worked with members of the General Assembly and other advocates to think about what a normal rental environment looks like. Typically, there's a vacancy rate in rental units that's somewhere around 7% in a healthy economy. We have less than 2% vacant apartments in Rhode Island. So we know that the numbers are going to be skewed because the demand is so high for available or vacant units. But in addition to that, there are some bad actors who've really taken the opportunity to increase rental rates to such an extreme level that people who are hardworking and have been able to pay their rent in years past can no longer do such a thing.
And not only that, the money they put towards the rental, they don't have enough for food, medication, gasoline to get to work. I was talking to a young man the other day who works 2 jobs. One in my district in Smithfield.
Yes.
And he drives all the way to Westerly for his second job. Costs him $100 a week in gas. But he needs both jobs.
Yes.
It's just crazy.
More people now are doing the same, whether they're doubling or tripling up in their home, inviting other family members to stay in, or, as you said, working 2 and 3 jobs at times. And sometimes they'll add in something like an Uber or a Lyft, right? You know, not that that's not a full-time job, but it's something you can be more flexible with to earn additional income. And I think the name of this game is going to be continuing to pound away on the policy side to make sure that we have protections for renters and homeowners, but also ensuring that some of our small business owners who rent apartments for a living, that they also have the protection and they receive the rents that they're just and due. During the start of COVID, United Way was able to help create a rental assistance program in partnership with the state, and that was called the Safe Harbor Housing Program. Our charge wasn't just to make sure that people stayed housed during the pandemic, but also to make sure that landlords and property owners received their just rent. And that way, we didn't have people losing their apartment due to eviction or foreclosure on a property, which creates 2 sets of problems now. The individual who owned the home formerly and the content or resident of the unit are both out of luck. And that's not good for Rhode Island economy either.
No, it's not good too either if they have children. Children's another thing about schools and hopping from one school to another school because they have to move because they can't stay in a permanent location because either the rent's too high or the landlord kicks them out, or it's just a constant battle.
United Way works in this area as well. We support after school and summer learning programs, and one of the measures that we've been looking at with our youth is the notion of social emotional learning. The topic you just mentioned, unnecessary or artificial displacement, removing a student from the classroom that they've become accustomed to, the students that they became friends with, the teacher who knew their intricacies and was able to deliver for them in an academic fashion, to reinsert them in another school district and potentially in another city or town, certainly in another neighborhood, it has an emotional impact on the kid.
No doubt.
You're ripping them from their roots and planting them wherever they can find a place to lay their head. We know that's not the best case scenario for education.
Yeah, it's not, for a lot of different reasons, not only education, the mental health and well-being of that child
Yes.
also. Because obviously you have a friend that you can talk to, you can hang around with, a buddy, and now you're 3 communities away trying to start all over again. That is a very emotional turmoil to a young child.
It is, and it has a lifelong impact.
Right.
You know, thinking about the nature of building relationships, creating a sense of place or community, and then being extracted from that on a moment's notice and deposited somewhere else, sometimes even over state lines,
Right.
without a real connection back to those individuals or locations.
You know, you're at the top liaison of the organization. What's the strategy moving forward with all the problems that we currently have, and possibly a lot of cuts coming with this budget and the new administration in Washington, with the homelessness, with the people that need help?
I'll tell you, John, our strategy is to think local. You know, we've worked for a long time with our chambers of commerce, our local businesses, our school departments, and the principals in those individual buildings. And now our charge is working with parents and other community members to make sure that at the local level, we're driving the resource to the need, that we're deriving strategy from people with lived experience to ensure that they're part of designing the solution for their own household. A lot of times we have people who live on high designing solutions for those that they've never even met or been in contact with. And we appreciate the support, but also know that the people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution.
You know, you're 100% right. And I want to talk just a little bit more about that when we come back, because we got to take another break. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages with Mr. Kyle Bennett.
And now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. Kyle Bennett, Chief of Staff, United Way, is in the house today. Kyle, thank you for joining us today. Greatly appreciate your time coming forward and telling us about United Way. I want to talk a little bit about the 211 again. This is the last segment for the show. I want my people to zoom in on the Good Energy Fund and 211, the van, the whole host of menu that you have at your restaurant.
We love it. So 211, again, is United Way's helpline. Anytime you have a question or a concern about a health or human service need, for example, if you have a sick or elderly parent, if you have a child that needs access to after-school or summer learning programs, you can call 211 and we can get you connected to the services that you need. We know the weather has changed. It's wintertime, and the Good Neighbor Energy Fund at United Way is a great place to help out. If you're so inclined and in a position to do so, we ask you to make a donation. Help out your neighbors. You can text to 91999, or you can go to United Way's website, or call 211 and figure out how to make a donation there. But we'll say if you're on the other side and you need a little help and you give us a call at 211, we'll connect you with our local community action program where you can get a tank of oil or a month's worth of gas, up to $850 worth of support at the Good Neighbor Energy Fund. So if you're feeling as if you're in need and could use a little bit of assistance, you don't qualify for LIHEAP, but you're just above that income threshold, give us a call at 211.
You know, Kyle, I want to thank you and thank United Way for all the things that they do in the community. There's a lot of people that need and needs for whatever it's food, utilities, pharmaceutical supplies, whatever it is. And you're right there at the threshold. So when people call, you're right there. I want to thank you, thank your organization for what you do. And if any of my viewers, if you want to donate, please donate to United Way. Next week, my guest will be Miss Kate Duffy of Tipping Point of Recovery. If you see something, folks, say something. Too many things are going on in the United States right now. Be a good neighbor. We'll see you next week.